Podcast. I'm your ultimate jet guide. Whether you're a buyer or you're a broker, today we're pulling back the curtain on private aviation to help you buy or sell a private jet without wasting time or losing money. If you're brand new here, this is our weekly live stream where I help educate buyers and brokers in private aviation, giving you the tips and tricks to help you not waste any time and not lose any money. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but we're so glad that you are here joining us on this live stream today. I'm going to be sharing with you today a presentation that I'm going to be doing at Sun and Fun this year, and it's all about how to become a private jet or an aircraft broker. So I'm very excited to be sharing that information with you today. We're going to hit it right now, going into it, how to become an aircraft broker. And if you have any questions while we're doing this, go ahead and drop them in the comments below, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, wherever you might be. Happy to answer whatever questions come to mind. So let's get started. I'm going to be sharing with you, how aviation works, how to become a professional. I'm going to make that a little bigger, how to do your research, whether you're part of a brokerage or not. This is things that you can do for free to just, grow as an individual in aviation and become a professional. Be sharing the steps and the tools that you need for listing an aircraft for sale. We're also going to be talking about how to do sales calls and what the deal actually looks like. And these are questions, and these are things where I'm talking to people, and it's really interesting because I'm talking to individuals who are usually where I was a few years ago. And at that point in time, I was just working in a job that wasn't bad. It was paying the bills, but I still felt like we were living paycheck to paycheck. I also felt like there was more I could be doing. And I felt as though no matter how much extra effort I put into my job, I was only paid for my time being there, a salary. There was no way to get ahead. At the same time, I knew I wanted to do something that would allow me to sell something that was high ticket, even though it was a longer sales cycle, but the payoff would be that much greater. I didn't want to sell, cars. I didn't want to sell widgets. I didn't want to sell furniture where I would have to sell a lot of things to make a big impact. I wanted to sell a few big things to make a large impact. And so that's exactly what I wanted. And that's what I fell into. I had no aviation background. I didn't even know you could sell a private jet. I thought you just go to the dealership and you buy it. And so I just kind of fell into it by the grace of God and hit the ground running. I sold 20 jets my very first year. With a commission of about $5,000 take home. And that was $100,000 in my first year. And I continued that pattern into the future. And that's what I train people to do today, how to make six figures by selling private jets in your first year. But before you jump into it, you don't know what you don't know. And so today I'm pulling back the curtain to show you how to be a broker, what's involved, what are the steps, and we won't go into super detail. That's what the course is for. And there's a free resource for you at the end of the video. You can just get it for free. Actually, you know what? We're not even going to wait. If you are interested in learning more and you're an aspiring jet broker, head over to the Circle community. That's circle.jetlifearrow.com. There's a free community where you can discuss things, ask any questions that you have about becoming a broker, and a lot of resources there as well. So check that out. Let's get into being a private jet broker. So again, my name is Tom. If in case you haven't, heard of me, I just a little bit of background of who I am and what I do. I'm a former youth pastor. I was a youth pastor for about 10 years, and then I was a manager of a music school and just fell into aviation. I alluded to it earlier. I was passionate about my jobs, but they weren't fulfilling me in a way that I felt, I could do more. I felt like I could be a better dad. I could be a better provider for my family, and I just needed the right vehicle. And I fell into aviation. It turned out to be a great vehicle for my family and I. And I worked with a brokerage for about 3 years. And then I came to the realization that, if I'm going to make more of this, I need to start out on my own. And so I started the Jet Life Arrow brokerage. Within the brokerage, we are a very unique model. I don't know of any other brokerage in the world that allows you to work from anywhere, has as competitive a compensation plan as we do, provides ongoing training and mentoring, and also still leaves room for you to establish your own personal brand within the larger brand. So I think it's a really unique opportunity that we've created. But at the same time, everything I'm going to teach you today, you don't have to be a Jet Life Arrow broker. This is just for you. If you want to be an aircraft broker, these are the tips and tools that you're going to need. And just so you know, I mentioned I was able to make six figures my first year. Year two, year three, I continued to make six figures. I went up all the way up to over $500,000 of gross revenue, take home pay for myself and my family. And then right now this year, I share the case study of our one of our team members, Alex, who came in with no aviation background. He had flown a flight simulator a couple times, was curious about aviation, wanted to become a pilot one day. He went to Ohio State, studied finance, took a year in the finance field, found me on YouTube like a lot of people do, and he studied for a couple of days with me doing our training package. And here we are since June. We're about 9 months later. He's closed two deals. He's currently got two listings. He's on track to make over $100,000 in his first year. He's already at $60,000. And that's not to brag or anything like that. That's just to show proof of concept, that we can help you make a six-figure income if you just kind of follow the steps and stay focused on what we're doing here. So I share that with you because he's the man. Alex is the man. So this is how aviation works. This is kind of like the framework you have to understand, because a lot of people don't know, right? When I first went to become a jet broker, I thought I was selling private trips, like a charter broker or something. Little did I realize I'm actually selling the aircraft itself, the pre-owned aircraft itself. And there's a market for people. Like I said, I've done 20 transactions my first year, again and again and again. I'm almost at 100 transactions in 4 years. So there's a lot of volume that you can do within the pre-owned jet sales world. So who buys an aircraft? Well, people who buy an aircraft, they're usually either owner operators, they're business execs or companies. They are charter investors, perhaps people who want to buy an airplane and put it to work for them. And the reasons why they buy an aircraft vary. It could be things for like time savings. It could be tax benefits. It could be a business tool for them. It could be about safety and security, privacy, remote locations, hobby and leisure. And again, we can go into so much detail on all of this, but I'm going to kind of push through it pretty quickly so there's time for questions at the end. And I really just want to give you I want you to drink from the fire hose right now. So I want you to see that not only can I help you make sense of aviation, but we kind of try to lay it out so that you can see a pathway through this. I'm like, oh, okay, if I start to understand who buys it and I can understand the reason why they're buying it, well, then I can speak to them and help solve whatever problem they have. Right. That's the reason why I'm sharing this information. It's not just so that you can see the information, it's so you can make sense of it and how it's used and applied to be successful. Let's talk about who sells the aircraft. Well, it could be for sale by owner. It could be a pilot or mechanic, could be a management company, or it could be a broker. And there's other people that kind of get in there. And what I want you to see in this who sells an aircraft is that really the benefit of being a broker is that is your full-time job. This is what you do 24/7, 365. If I've had pilots who are representing a seller, and I've had pilots tell buyers, hey, I'll get back to you next week. I'm flying this week. I'm trying to buy an airplane. I'm trying to give you money for an aircraft, and you're telling me you don't have time to talk to me. You're too busy with your other job. That's the negative of having somebody else who's not a full-time professional do this for you. What if somebody calls and the mechanic is busy working on somebody else's plane? You're gonna miss out on a sale. And if you try to do it on your own, I mean, you're dealing with tire kickers. You don't know what you don't know. There's a real need for somebody like a broker who understands, the deal and understands basically what we're going to go over today. It's really important. And so why do people sell their aircraft? This is key, because if you're going to get a listing, if you're going to have somebody hire you to list their aircraft for sale, you want to know what are some of the reasons that people sell their aircraft. Well, it could be a change in the mission. Maybe they need something that goes further or doesn't go as far. Maybe they have a heavy jet and they need to downgrade. Maybe they need to get somewhere faster, or maybe they need more seats in the aircraft. Related to that is you might have somebody that wants to upgrade the aircraft. Okay. And so they just want something newer, something that's a little bit more, maybe they have a tax bill and they need to make a purchase. So I like my jet, I'll just get the newer version of it. It could be they bought something else. It could be they're liquidating the asset. Maybe there's been a death in the family and the owner no longer uses it. The kids don't use the aircraft and the owner's no longer alive. Could be liquidating like a charter company that went out of business. It could be a flight school that's getting rid of aircraft. It could be they don't use it enough, right? They bought it, they thought they use it, and they're not using it, and they want to sell it. And last but not least, it also could be a cost issue. It might be, just because don't forget, buying an airplane is the cheap part. Maintenance costs will eat you alive. Fixed costs you have to pay no matter what: hangar, insurance, pilot fee, pilot training. Those are all involved, and you got to pay it whether you use it or not. So after a while, these guys just don't want to pay it anymore. So those are reasons why people would want to sell. And by the way, I forgot to mention this. I'm going to be breaking up how to become a broker into basically 4 sections. The first section is how aviation works. You see that in top left-hand corner. So how do you market or sell a private jet? Well, we can do a couple things. You can do word of mouth. A lot of sales happen through word of mouth, just somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. Now, if you're not going to be a full-time jet broker, can you be somebody that's a word of mouth guy? Can you be in the circles and having the conversations with others that you hear things of what's available, what's coming to the market? Another way to do it is a full database, like an MLS. We use a system called JetNet. There's another system called Amstat, and these are system subscriptions that you can purchase. If you're a full-time jet broker, you can buy them, and it gives you the ability to reach out to owners and ask them about or see what's for sale, what's available on the market. There's also official networks where you can present an aircraft for sale, like EAA, AOPA, the Pilots Association, NBAA, National Business Aviation Association, and organizations like GLADA, the Global Licensed Aircraft Dealer Association. We've talked about them many times here on this channel. It's another professional network of other brokers and other mechanics and other people in the industry that you can post your listings. And if they have a buyer that they've spoken to, now you can get a deal done together. It's invaluable. We also got the usual, your controller.com, your trade of planes, your flying marketplace, AvBuyer. That's another place you can market an aircraft. And last but not least, social media, whether that's Facebook posts, Instagram Reels, email campaigns. And so the better broker you are, the more you're leveraging all of these opportunities to put a listing in front of somebody in order to get a deal done. But let's talk about the cycle of selling a jet. What does the cycle look like? Well, it's basically 2 things: get a listing, sell a listing. That's it. All you have to do is and that's the main method that I teach is list and sell. If you can get 1 listing, you can get 2 listings, you build a book of business, list and sell. And so the getting the listing is learning the market. And we're going to talk about how do you learn the market? How do you become knowledgeable and proficient in a given market so that people will trust you as an authority figure? How do you make phone calls? How do you present the offer to list the aircraft and then get the listing agreement signed? That's the first phase of any deal. The second phase is to be the selling the listing. How do you market the aircraft? How do you handle buyers? How do you negotiate the deal? What are the elements of the deal so that we're all on the same page? How do you do a pre-buy survey? And how do you facilitate delivery? These are all aspects of the cycle of selling a private jet. All right, probably what y'all came for. How do brokers get paid? There's 4 basic ways that you can get paid as a private jet broker, one of which is the seller pays you. And this is just what I'm talking about. You reach out to a seller, they agree to pay you based on a successful sale, and that's it. Usually the commission can be anywhere from 4 to 6% is what we will tell our sellers. If it's $3 million or below, that's kind of the average of what we're looking for, between 4 and 6%. And that's negotiable. That's up to you. If you want to do a deal for 2%, more power to you. If you want to do it for a flat rate, $50K, that's fine too. You have flexibility, but in general, we're looking between 4 and 6%, depending on the sales price. The other way to get paid is on the buyer side. So you find a buyer and he's like, I will hire you to represent me in a deal. Go find me an aircraft. Or sometimes the buyer will bring you an aircraft that they saw on Controller and they're like, hey, I really like this. I just want your help here because I don't know what I don't know, and I want somebody representing me. I don't want to just work with the seller's broker. So no way to get paid. A third way that you can get paid, and this is what a lot of people I think you're going to find yourself doing, is to become a bird dog. It's an industry term of endearment, but that's somebody who brings a deal together. So if you're somebody that you heard about a plane that's for sale and you bring it to a broker that has a seller and you help get the deal across the line, you can make money as a bird dog, somebody who puts a deal together. Another way to do it to get paid is in inventory or dealer deals. So if you're in a position where you can buy an aircraft, hold on to it, maybe fix it up a little bit, and then sell it, that's a great way to make an income on the split, on the margin. Speaking of margin and split, that's another way to do it, through a simultaneous transaction. So if the buyer's not paying you, the seller's not paying you, you tell both parties, listen, I got to make my money in the middle. So you put the plane under contract with a third party. Maybe you have some investors that you can work with. They put it under contract for $1 million, and then you turn around and you sell it to the second party for $1.1 million. And then you make the commission in the spread. Now, there's a couple different reasons why you would do it that way. Um, and I think the most important thing about this is transparency. So making sure that everybody knows, listen, you're buying this for 1.1 million. The seller got it at $1 million. I'm keeping the spread because there's no commission in between. And especially in this world, and the world of aviation, most people don't mind you making money. They just care if you're making an obscene amount of money because you're screwing somebody over. So simultaneous transactions, as I'll call them, sometimes you'll hear the term back to back. It's because one buyer's buying it and then back to backing it, or right away turning it over to somebody else. There's nothing inherently wrong about them. I think transparency is key, and there are times where you would want to use them. And actually, I have a couple videos on that, so you can check that out in the channel. So that is how brokers get paid. Next up, and again, if you have any questions, toss them out in the comments. Good morning to Ryan. What's going on, man? Good morning to Ursu. Have not seen you in a while. I'm glad you're here checking us out on the LinkedIn. Really appreciate your support, guys. All right, let's talk about how to choose a market. So, you're looking into becoming an aircraft broker. I mean, you got a couple questions you got to ask yourself. Am I going to go general aviation, or am I going to go business aviation? And then, of course, there's also commercial aviation if you want to sell Boeings and things of that nature. Totally different ballgame. I have no idea how to help you there. But if you want to go into general aviation, mostly pistons, maybe some turboprops, it's a great place to start. A lot of opportunity there. A great resource for that is the Aircraft Broker Academy with Alex. He's had a lot of people have success selling those kinds of aircraft. So you can get into general aviation, or you can look at the business jet, the business jet world. So it's an interesting world. It's less owner operators, less pilots, although they are out there. It's just, I really like it. I found it's a cool little niche. But within either of those, well, especially mostly business jet, you're going to have to decide, are you going to go pistons, turboprops, or jets? I would recommend specializing in one of the three. And then within there, you've got your makes and models. Well, actually, before that, you've got your categories. You can do your light jets, small 1,000 nautical mile range, 4 to 6 seats in the back, depending. And yeah, and that's the light jets. You got your mid-sized jets that are a little bit bigger, a little bit more range, 1,600 nautical miles or so, or your heavy jets that are going coast to coast. Nice cabins you can pretty much break dance in if you wanted to. That's your Gulfstreams, your Challengers, your Globals, and that sort of a thing. And then within there, you start getting into the makes and models of a specific market. So those are things to think about, when you're looking at, what kind of a market that you want to be in. And I'll show you how to understand what a market looks like. So once you've chosen, okay, I'm going business jet, light jets. Okay. How do you understand a market? So these are things you can do for free. These are things you can do on your own. And these are skills that you can bring to a brokerage if you wanted to get a job as a broker. You need to understand, how do you find out the average year, the average airframe total time, and the average price of a given market. Along those lines, you also need to understand, what are the common inspection items, the avionics upgrades, and the common buyer path. Okay, so what does this all mean? If I came to you and you said, I mostly sell, Citation 1SPs, great. What's the average year of a 1SP? Oh, right now on the market, they're about 1981, give or take. Great. What's the average airframe time? Around 6,000 hours. What's the average price? Oh, they're about $500,000. Cool. What is it a common inspection on? Well, the big inspections are going to be your phase 1 through 4s, your phase 5, your 10,000 hour inspections. Those are going to be your big inspections, and they're roughly going to cost, X, Y, and Z. Your engines are going to be, 3,500 hour till overhaul. You want to understand that. And common avionics upgrades are Garmin systems. So it came factory, and then you can upgrade it with a Collins system, and you can upgrade that to a Garmin system. And the common buyer path is usually these are people coming out of a turboprop or a piston. They want to get their first jet. It's under $1 million. And then from there, they move on to either a newer one in the CJ line, or something with more age, maybe like a Citation 2 or a 5 or an Ultra or something along those lines, or something like a Phenom. So I can spit all that out because I took the time to learn it. We have a video in our free course that shows you how to do research specifically by going to the controller, looking at the data, filling out an Excel spreadsheet, and and um, and putting all that in a place where you can actually make sense of it. And again, the best place to get that is go to circle.jetlifearrow.com. There's a free course on the side that you can check out. So this is, by the way, we're in phase 2 now. So we talked about how aviation works. Now I want to talk to you about research and becoming a professional. Secondly, let's talk about what is an aircraft worth? What is so you have identified what market you want to be in. You've identified, what are the characteristics of that market? What makes that airframe, what are the averages of that airframe? What are the knowns of that airframe? Now we got to figure out what is an aircraft actually worth? Like if I have a single airframe, what is this thing actually worth? Well, number one, the value is going to be in the engines. So you need to understand TBO, that's time before overhaul, and the cost of the overhaul. So, for example, Citation 1SP, 3,500 hours until you have to take the whole thing apart and put it back together. The cost of that, for sake of ease, is $350,000 to do that. So it costs you roughly 100. I believe that's right. So if we have 3,500 hour TBO, and I'm sorry, if it's going to cost you $350,000 to fix it every 3,500 hours, it's $100 an hour. Okay. So roughly speaking, if an engine has 1,000 hours remaining on it, that's $100,000 of value. So that's the value of the engines. And times that by 2, there's $200,000 right there, right? 100 hours remaining. 1,000 hours remaining times $100 is $100,000, right? So roughly $200,000 just in the engines. The other thing you want to keep in mind, though, is some people will kind of rake you over the coals with regards to, it's coming due for an engine overhaul soon in 200, 300, 500, 800 hours. Soon is relative, right? Take that cost, that $350,000, and divide that from the time remaining. So, for example, if you knew an engine only had 500 hours remaining, if I take a look at $350,000 divided by the 500 hours that are remaining, that gives me $700 per hour. So if I just put aside $700 per hour, that's a way to be creative about saying, well, it's really not that big a deal. If you just put $700 an hour every time you fly, you'll be able to overhaul that engine when the time comes due. Another way to look at it is some engines have engine extension programs. So becoming knowledgeable about that can help, because sometimes, uneducated buyers, they see an aircraft that's due for an overhaul in 200 hours. And they're like, oh my gosh, this thing's going to turn into a pumpkin in 200 hours. Well, no, sir, there's a few options that you have available to you. You also want to know the cost of avionics upgrades, cost of the common maintenance items, and what's the averages of the year, the price, and the airframe. So, for example, if the Citation 1SP is averaging a 1981 and the plane you're trying to sell is a 1983, well, it's a younger version. That's great. That's a plus. So the average is $500,000. Well, that's a plus, all things being equal. Same thing with the airframe time. If the average airframe time is 6,000 hours and yours is a 1983 with 3,000 hours, well, that's a plus. You have less airframe on there. And then if the average ones on the market have roughly 800 hours remaining on the engines, and yours has a fresh hot section on the engines, it's got 1,700 hours remaining on it. Now, obviously, you can see why your aircraft is worth more than the market average of $500,000. How much more, you have to kind of look around and do comps. It's kind of like real estate, but this is giving you a ballpark because the market, the common upgrades, the cost of the upgrades, the maintenance. Now you can take a look at an individual unit, a specific private jet, and compare that to the market and come up with a valuation. This is how you do your research. This is how you become a professional. This is what a lot of brokerages will have you do for the first year. So they'll pay you $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year just to do this, to do the research and to become knowledgeable on the market, and then hand off that data to a broker to close a deal. What I'm doing here is I'm giving you what you need to do for free. And then let's get you started as a broker as quickly as possible, because if you can get this under your belt, you can get started. So some resources that you can use, we've got Controller, Trade a Plane, Flying Magazine, AvBuyer. These are all different marketplaces that you can look at. to get the information. And again, I have a video. If you go to circle.jetlifearrow.com, I have a video here that allows you to, within our free course, because we have a free course, that explains how to do this step by step, using controller trade a plane. Another resource you can use is VREF or Aircraft Blue Book. And then if you're, if you're with a brokerage, you can do JetNet or AMSET. Those are professional level programs that brokerages have access to that will spit out like, here's the market report for the Citation 501 market. They just tell you, here are the answers. So this is, we still got more to go. Keep asking your questions. Ursu, I see your questions in the comments. Let's take a look here. I'm graduating. I'm sure if I should take the International Business Bachelor's or Flight Technician certification. I don't know much about either of these, so let's connect offline in the circle group and I'll look them up and see what's better. Here, a follow-up question: if you want to become a broker currently working as an SDR with 1.5 years experience, I mean, if the end goal is to become a broker, I think we just do it. Either you find a brokerage that will hire you to train you and get started, or we go through the Jet Life Arrow course. That's specifically what it's made for. If you want to make 6 figures in your first year of being a jet broker by selling private jets in the United States, then I can help you. And that's exactly what, kind of what we're doing. So, all right. So we understand how aviation works. We understand who buys, who sells, why they buy, why they sell. We understand how brokers get paid. We understand the next step is to do our research, to become a professional, to do valuations on the aircraft themselves. Let's talk about how to get a listing. Well, it's 3 steps. Do your market research, connect with other brokers, and what I mean by that is you're going to call through the market. You're going to talk to other brokers. You're going to find out what they're asking. You're going to find out the stories on their aircraft. You're going to become knowledgeable on the market by doing the research that we talked about. The second step is you're going to be calling owners and finding leads to call. So maybe you don't have JetNet and can contact the owners, but maybe you can just go around, your local FBO, your local airport. You have buddies that you can contact. You hang out in Facebook groups and you see when somebody says, hey, I'm looking to sell my plane. Okay. You find ways to connect with the owners. And then lastly, you present your offer. Hey, I'll sell your jet for you if you're willing to pay. And sometimes I should put this in there. You can do that with an exclusive listing where you present to them, hey, I'm a broker. I will sell this for you. I'm the only person that's going to have access to sell this to you, which is the ideal. Or some guys will let you do a non-exclusive. So like they'll say basically, hey, if you bring me a buyer, I'll pay you commission. Great. If this is kind of your passion and this is where you want to get started, you can start there. A lot of guys, even brokers, will say, if you bring me a buyer, I'll split a commission with you. So, just get out there, get what's knowledgeable, and then find a way to find buyers. It will be the next step. So once you understand, okay. So great question for Ursu. He says he's near an FBO. Yeah. I mean, yes, they don't usually like people just kind of showing up and be like, hey, can I talk to the jet owners? I'm talking to more people who I've spoken to that are already in aviation. Maybe they're mechanics or they're pilots, so they're sitting in the circles. In that case, Ursu, I'd recommend connecting with people online through Facebook groups, through other brokers. Even if you're talking to one broker and they're like, "Yeah, I got a buyer, I just can't find the right plane," and then you find the right plane, you can connect the brokers together and maybe get paid on that end. That's another way that you can do it. Like I said, as a bird dog, bringing deals together. So we know how aviation works. We know how to become a professional. You finally convince someone to let you list their aircraft for sale. This is how we prepare a listing. So we've moved out of the phase of wanting to be a broker. We've made the phone calls. We've gotten someone to let us list the aircraft. Now, how do we prepare a listing? Well, step 1 is we're going to gather information. We need the specs, the maintenance reports, the photos, and the history of the aircraft. And that's what we're asking the owners for at this point. We're also going to take all of that, and next step is going to prepare market materials. So we need to create a spec sheet. We want to create email replies so that when somebody asks us a question, we know exactly what we're going to say, whether it's a copy paste or you use a tool like Text Expander to organize that. And then specific automations. The thing about controller is that when somebody inquires about it, there's no automations that say, hey, follow up with this person. But there are ways to set up automations with that. Then once you list it, the next step is you're going to have to handle buyers. So one thing you're going to need to do is qualify them. So you're going to find out what's their background, what brings you to the market, what stood out, to you about this particular listing. And we go through this in our full course, the actual scripts for qualifying a buyer and finding out the background information that we need to know. What is their current situation? What is the problem that they're trying to solve? How have they tried to solve the problem in the past? What's the solution? We basically take principles from people like Grant Cardone with 10X and his sales stuff, and Jeremy Miner with NEPQ, and we apply that to aviation. It's been very helpful. So this is how you learn how to talk to these people in a structured way, and I even go into that in a little bit later in this presentation. Also, proof of funds is going to be important to qualify a buyer. Making sure, hey, do you already have money in escrow, or is this a finance thing, or is this a cash thing? Or are we paying in gold bars? What are we doing? We just want to make sure that the buyers that we bring to the sellers are actually qualified, so we're not wasting time. Then we're going to talk about preparing the offer. Preparing the offer is not just about price. It's not just about the price. So if I offer you, $500,000 for your, $500,000 bird, that's great. But if I want to take it somewhere where it's going to get, grounded, they're going to be overly scrupulous. That's no deal. So there's terms that we need to consider. Who's doing the pre-buy? What's the responsibility of the seller once the pre-buy is done? How fast is the pre-buy? When's it going to start? When's it going to end? What kind of a test flight are we doing? Where are we closing? All those things go into the deal, and especially timeline. So next are the steps of the deal. So this is just for it's a quick overview how a deal works. First, you'll get a letter of intent that outlines the deal. You'll get that signed by both parties. You'll open up escrow and get a deposit into escrow. From there, you'll draft up an aircraft purchase agreement, which is a longer form document. So if an LOI is 1.5 pages, the aircraft purchase agreement might be 5 to 10 to 20 to more pages, depending on how verbose you want it to be. Then it's going to outline the terms, the timeline, and the what ifs. Okay, and this is really important because there's a lot of what ifs that can happen in an aviation deal, and that's what we work through with you when you're part of the Jet Life Aero community. You can ask questions like, "Hey, the buyer did this. How do I work with this?" So then we go through the pre-buy survey. That's when they actually look at the aircraft and make sure it's a good aircraft, and then finally we take delivery of the aircraft. So it's a quick overview of the steps of a deal. Let's get into the sales calls. So we've talked about how aviation works, talked about how to become a professional. We talked about how the deal looks. Now let's talk about what does it look like? This is just a teaser of how we teach people to talk to high net worth individuals. Maybe you've done sales before, but there's some subtle differences when you're talking to high net worth individuals in the field of aviation. Maybe you've never done sales before and you just have no idea what you would if you're trying to sell a jet. So this is what we talk about. We talk about the greeting, the fact finding, the demo, the close. And I liken it to when you're learning how to fly. I've got about 150 hours as a private pilot. When I'm learning how to fly, my instructor didn't just say, "Go land the plane." Well, at first he did, but then we had to break it down. He had to show me, you don't just land the plane. There's 4 phases of landing a plane. First, you gotta worry about your approach, then you're gonna worry about how you're gonna round out, then you're gonna worry about your flare, and then you're gonna finally touch down, onto the runway and keep flying the plane, all the way to the parking spot. That's very important as well. So, same thing goes for our sales calls. We break them down into 4 phases: the greeting, the fact finding, the demo, the close. And the reason we do that is because when you're flying, you can have a good landing or a bad landing. If you have a good landing, but you don't know why, you don't learn. If you have a bad landing and you don't know why, you don't learn. Same thing with sales calls. If you have a good call, you want to see what did you do well and how do I do it better or more often. If you had a bad call, well, what didn't I do well and how can I avoid doing that? So with this in mind, if someone comes to me and says, I can't get through to the owners, all the secretaries are hanging up on me, or they don't return my call. Well, I look at it, I'm like, well, your greeting is probably off. Just like if you're coming into a landing and your approach is off, you're too fast or you're not on center line, well, you're going to have a bad landing. If you start bad, you're going to land bad. Same thing with, if people say, well, I get through my demo and I tell people, but they never sign up. They never list with me. Well, we go through the phone calls and we find out, well, you never even asked for a close. You never even set up a follow-up. And so not only are we teaching you how aviation works, how the flow of the deals work, but we also want to teach you the skills of communication when we're doing deals and make that as helpful as possible for you. With that in mind, I again encourage you to check out our Circle community. That's circle.jetlifearrow.com. There's a lot of great resources there, and it's for aspiring brokers. It's there, it's free, it's a great community. And then from there, we do have other products like our training course, and there's some awesome things that are going on in that world as well. But I want to final call for questions. I really appreciate y'all joining me. I apologize for the technical difficulties earlier in the call today, but I appreciate you guys being here. Look forward to seeing you next Wednesday on the call, and we'll catch you later.